Don't do it, ESPN. Don't do it. Please. Please. Don't do it. Please don't do it. Like, it's already rough enough as is, but don't do it. We know you're going to do it, but don't do it. TNT and the NBA have reached an agreement. Inside the NBA is going to basically be kind of TNT produced show shown on NBC, shown on ESPN. So Inside the NBA is going nowhere. The reality of the situation is, Inside the NBA is something that it's not comedy watching, it's an entertainment show more so than anything. Nobody watches Inside the NBA for basketball takes except for the occasional Kenny Smith take. People watch Inside the NBA to watch Ernie, Shaq, Kenny, and Charles just talk about basketball, half the time insult each other, and a lot of the time when it comes to Shaquille O'Neal, insulting current players. But it's going to be on ESPN. And what does every single basketball thing with ESPN have to have? This man right here. And look, I respect Stephen A as far as like work ethic is concerned. I respect Stephen A as far as like what he's been able to accomplish in the industry. At the end of the day, whether you're in journalism, whether you are talking in front of a microphone like myself, whatever you are, Stephen A. Smith is probably the like peak of what you can get. You never know. I mean, maybe if you guys could subscribe, it'd be great. If 2 million people watch this video and all 2 million subscribe, we might overtake Stephen A. Smith. But no, thank you guys for 5.1k. If we can hit like somehow 5.2 by the end of the day, that's ridiculous. But yeah, so with Stephen A. Smith, he's almost on everything. And we have heard from someone in ESPN. The ESPN president says the network has no plans to add Stephen A. So let's take a listen to this clip. And we can say whether or not this means no or this means yes.
Can I tell you what has been the number one reaction that I've seen and I've gotten from this news? Are they going to shoehorn Stephen A. in?
The answer is that we have no plans to do that. It's conceived as that Turner, as they have always done with this show, with this cast, with the people involved behind the scenes, are going to continue to do what they've always done, and we're going to distribute it on the ESPN platform. At its essence, at its core, no. Like, we don't want to do that at all. We want this show as it has been always.
Okay, thank God. I was scared because I read the title and was like, we have no plans to put Stephen A. I'm like, that means Stephen A's in it. That means Stephen A. would be in there. No, thank God. They literally, that's the best thing we can hear. Literally the best thing we can hear. Because I'm sorry. Like, he would just instantly ruin the show. Like, in my opinion, Draymond Green ruins the show whenever he's there. This is not on Stephen A. I thought Alex Caruso just looked out of place when he was there. Like, it is not just... It's hard to get a fifth member of that crew. Because it was hard to get anyone else on the crew. But then Shaq obviously fit in so well once he retired. Because he did it straight away after he retired. But, like, there's too much of a gap. And this guy, like, most of like inside banter, other than Ernie Johnson, who's been there the whole time, has been about, like, from former NBA players, was a big part of it, is that they can talk about their time in the league and being an NBA player, and they relate to that. Stephen A. Smith does not relate to that at all. Stephen A. Smith is the only man in history, let's be real, Stephen A. Smith is the only man in history to average 1.5 points per game with 1 game played. He is the only player. Like, Stephen A. Smith made up a new thing. He was so, to be fair, I don't know if he was so good or he was so bad that the man scored a half a pointer. The man scored a half a point in a basketball game. I wonder what happens in a half a point. Is it like, I don't know how you could possibly get a half point. I don't know, like playing in North Korean basketball rules. Like, we've seen those weird rules, like the last 2 minutes of the game, 3-pointers are worth 7. Is a bank shot worth 1 now? And, you know, banked free throw. Therefore, banked free throw is worth half unless called. Some weird North Korean type rule. Is that what he had to do? Because, like, that is absolutely mental. There is absolutely no way that Stephen A. Smith scored a half a point. But we all agree he doesn't belong there. Would have legit ruined the show. And that's the thing where it's like, Stephen A. Smith, I like Stephen A. on First Take. I know people don't like him there, but that's what he's good at. Him and Skip Bayless were the best combo ever. Either him and Skip Bayless or him and Shannon Sharp. Like, the two of them, like, it's hard to kind of match the energy of a Skip Bayless. it's hard to match the like energy of or even him and Shannon Sharp did it. But it's like, it's hard to go one-on-one with Skip Bayless because of how he prepares, of his energy and stuff. And realistically, like, they went to battle in debates. They were not sports analysts. They said whatever the hell came into their mind. But at the same time, when it comes to Stephen A., he did a good job. He did a great job of that. He's good at that. I don't like the current form of First Take, where it's just Stephen A., where it's basically a Stephen A. show. I don't really like the Stephen A. show. I really, really liked, like, really back in the day, when he would just go to battle. The problem is that Max Kellerman was a little bit too logical for Stephen A. Smith. Like, Stephen A. and Skip Bayless is still, like, you can look back, just like Skip, like, we remember, other than, like, obviously the iconic Max Kellerman quotes when he was there, but, like, we remember the Skip Bayless versus Stephen A. Smith arguments, just like we remember the Shannon Sharp versus versus Skip Bayless arguments, whereas Stephen A. and Shannon, I mean, it's fine, but we saw it with UFC, when Conor McGregor, like, broke Donald Cerrone's eye socket and, like, nearly could have killed the man. And Stephen A. Smith's like, man, Cerrone, he was soft. He could have kept going. He ended that fight prematurely. He's like, man, could have literally died in there. It was like, oh, he basically let Conor McGregor break his eye socket. And he implied that. And it's like, when Stephen A. Smith is ever on somewhere in sports that he is no right, like, if you ever hear Stephen A. Smith talk about football, not American football, like, soccer if you're Americans. To be fair, it's soccer here in a lot of situations because we have our own football. But either way, if you ever hear Stephen A. Smith talk about that sport, he has no idea what he's talking about. And he says nonsense. And, like, look, I'm not an expert. Big Leeds fan, as you guys can see right there. But, like, I'll watch enough of it. Grew up in the sport. Like, I'm no expert. Like, but I at least have an idea what's going on in the sport. And you can tell he has no idea. You can tell I'm not even sure he knows the rules. But every World Cup, he'll talk about it like, you know, he's an expert on the sport. And that's the problem with Stephen A. is that Stephen A. is going to probably come on to First Take or Inside the NBA and talk about, the his experiences as an NBA player like he actually knows. Because the reality is that I don't know if Shaq or Charles Barkley know that much about basketball. Like, Shaq is the most dominant force in the world. Like, but at the same time, what they do know about is being an NBA player. And I don't know. Like, I think putting Stephen A. in situations where he doesn't belong, like, I think he's a debater. I think Stephen A. is at his best as a debater. And he is at his best when he's either best as a debater or he is best almost arguing against the topic. And where Stephen A. Smith's not going to thrive in this is for people just having fun watching this. Like, Stephen A. Smith's there for the viral, like, his breakdown videos are hilarious. His breakdown videos are absolutely, absolutely hilarious. But it's not what Inside the NBA is. And thank God TNT are running this. And I'm sorry, if we see Stephen A. Smith set foot on this set, dear Lord, cancel Inside the NBA right there and then.